Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 23 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 42 today for the Australian Grand Prix in Season 3. If you guys did miss the previous one at Sao Paulo, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. That was a very topsy-turvy one, kind of classic Brazilian GP weekend with rain involved, but a track that was so wet, and yet everyone was on dry tyres. I did see a comment below on that video saying that was potentially actually a glitch of it actually being time for inters, but there's a glitch where the AI stick on dries, and I felt compelled to stay on dries because everyone was still on them. In the end, it turned into a disaster. That caused a spin. There were 2 red flags involved, and in the end, we had to limp home. We still picked up some decent points, all things considered, really, and it was a quite impressive 0 pit stop race, even though we changed tyres 3 times. We're still in 3rd place in the championship, but the McLaren boys take an early lead and grit on this championship. It's a 1-2 in the standings for Piastri and Bottas. 1 win for each of them, but Bottas also did take the sprint win as well, so he got some decent points on Piastri, 4 points behind his teammate. And yeah, looking at those points tallies, all of us have some catching up to do, but there's still plenty of this season to go. But initially right now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and purchase some more development feedback on the driver perks. That's going to boost our R&D generation, and then also 1 more on the power mapping to reduce the engine wear, because we still have that thing from Season 2 with a 16 race calendar. The engine wear seems to be very, very high compared to like Season 1, for example. And for the first time, we are purchasing 2 upgrades, an ultimate on the aero drag reduction and ultimate weight redistribution. That's actually the one that we didn't get at the end of Season 2, and we're doing that because going into this race weekend with those upgrades pending, so we're plateauing basically from where our car was, you can see the rest of the grid are starting to make some moves. McLaren with a small update, Red Bull with quite a large one, that even may be 1 ultimate upgrade for Red Bull. So Red Bull looking to try and bridge the gap to McLaren to try and get in the mixer for a race win potentially. But you can see we are now actually being caught by Alpine below us, so we're no longer kind of on our own. We actually might be in the company of one of the lower midfield teams, and we might find ourselves in a bit more of a difficult situation in Australia than we had in Sao Paulo. This may be one of those races where we're limiting the damage and just trying to maximize the points we can get with the car we have, and kind of banking on the upgrades coming in, and that's when we can really start maybe making some moves in the championship, in the drivers and the constructors. But it's so early in the season, it's hard to tell right now. But what is clear is McLaren have a very quick race car. In qualifying, it seems a bit more level. You know, the drivers are making that difference. But in the races, McLaren have just looked so rapid in a straight line. They've got the downforce as well to match. So they're a tough contender. But we're here down under for round number 3 on the Saturday in qualifying. Overcast conditions, but I don't believe there is any rain due for the race weekend. It's just going to be a bit of a gloomy weekend here in Melbourne. But hopefully that's not going to be an indicator of the mood we're going to be in by the end of it, as we go P1 initially on our first flying lap. Then we're down to P9. That's a bit more like it. Second lap we do improve to go P3, and it's actually quite tight, and Russell tops Q1, so there's maybe some hope. Maybe Piastri just over 1/10 off there. Bottas down in P9, so maybe really others have made a step forward. Mercedes haven't brought upgrades, but maybe the track just suits them better. Again, Ferrari struggling, even though Carlos Sainz had a blinder in Sao Paulo to split the 2 McLarens. On Saturday, they're really not performing, and then Sainz obviously dragged his car up in the race. So a bit of a confusing one for Ferrari, and Red Bull not really showing their hand in that first session. Let's see in this second session in Q2 if we're going to see a bit more of that Red Bull pace, that upgrade working for them. As you can see for us, well, we're having a bit of a nightmare in the last corner, having to go opposite lock, drifting the car through the final corner to still go P2 to my surprise. Leclerc P1 though. Oh, Bottas steals it away. Okay, he's ruined that. McLaren coming in with Red Bull vibes, ruining ruining everything, ruining the vibes here as we're in P6 now. Let's see if we can improve. It's a purple second sector, but you saw I went wide in the middle of the lap, and it's not an improvement, but I get away with it. That first lap time, despite the drifting through the last corner, was actually good enough to get through into the top 10 shootout. Gasly as well struggled. He only just makes it through, and both Aston Martins knocked out. That's a shocker. And Sergio Perez in the Sauber gets into the top 10. I'm pretty sure Sauber are also like the worst car on the grid as it stands, I think, or one of the worst. So that's actually really impressive by Sergio Perez. But usual suspects of the McLarens, Red Bulls. But look at Ferrari. They've improved. So maybe they heard me in Q1. They pulled up their socks and they've actually completely done the opposite of what I thought they were going to do there. So they've turned up now in Q2. Can they turn up again for Q3? Here we are then. First flying lap. The two Red Bulls ahead of us lining astern. Oh, into turn one. No! Huge moment for us. We got a bit wide. We got on the curb, got on the bow too early, and it's a bit dusty on that runoff area and that curb. And I could kind of tell off the back of that apex, the rear end was already going. Then I got onto the curb, and it spat me out completely. Just there, already losing balance, and then opposite lock, trying to catch the car whilst kind of wobbling the car through the corner, and it just completely bit me back, basically. And it's a shocker. It's a Q3 exit, early exit for us. It's going to be P10 on the road. Oh, it's not even much better for Pierre Gasly. P8, 1.1 of pole position. Piastri's got pole by 4.5 tenths nearly. Domination from the home favourite, of course, here. Lando Norris, though, in second place, showing that Red Bull do have some pace. Mercedes even there. Bottas, maybe he'll be actually disappointed with that to be down in P4, but there's maybe some hope for Red Bull and Mercedes splitting the two McLarens there. And Sergio bloody Perez in P5 in the Sauber. Unbelievable. He's out-qualified his old teammate from Red Bull, Verstappen, the two Ferraris, and both of us, myself and Gasly. That's astonishing from the Mexican, and it's a torrid end for myself and Gasly, because he's not much better. P8 really doesn't make much of a difference then, that mistake from me. So it looks like myself and Gasly have some work to do. We're in the company of Ferrari, where if you told me that, obviously, in the first two races, we would have been a lot lower. So all four of us have some work to do, but I guess Ferrari are going to be pretty happy for the first time. They've both got into Q3, I think, this season.
Welcome to Melbourne, and welcome to the Australian sun. We're still getting used to some track revisions here, but the core hasn't changed. This is a beloved classic of the F1 calendar, and it's time for the Australian Grand Prix. The Melbourne circuit is certainly one that needs to be taken seriously. It's a combination of slippery surfaces and difficult corners, making it a very tricky track when it comes to overtaking. Drivers find it hard to pass and will need to take full advantage of those DRS zones if they want to have any hope of breaking through. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Oscar Piastri lines up on pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Bottas, Perez, Verstappen, Sainz, Gasly, Leclerc, the owner driver, Albon, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Ricciardo, Mick Schumacher, Théo Pourchaire, Ocon, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Liam Lawson, Hulkenberg and Logan Sargent. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. Natalie Pinkham joins me once again in the commentary box. It's fantastic to have you with us today. I'm curious though, how do you think the drivers stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, the regulations aren't new anymore, but the teams and the drivers are still coming to terms with them. I firmly believe it's also track specific. We've seen some wheel-to-wheel racing throughout the year. Some tracks lend themselves better to it than others. I'd like to see it at every race in the whole season. Is that too much to ask?
So the home favourites on pole position in a very rapid McLaren. It's looking pretty good for a very good race weekend for the Australian. For us, P10, a lot of work to do in this race. It is once again overcast on the Sunday, but like Saturday, I don't think there's any rain involved this time round, thankfully, unlike Brazil. That's going to throw a big spanner into the works, but we have a spanner of just trying to work up our way through this top 10 and seeing where we can go. But to be honest, looking at the R&D chart and where Gasly finished, maybe this is kind of the fight we're in today with Ferrari for only the last 4 positions in the top 10. Hopefully not. Hopefully we can move forward. What can people like Sergio Perez do in the Sauber in P5? And to be fair, Ferrari want to make the most of it because it's the first time they're this high up. But we're getting ready for round number 3 down under here. It's the Australian Grand Prix. We go to 5 red lights and we are underway. It's a slow one for Gasly and Carlos Sainz. It's also a shocker for Verstappen. Oh my God! We nearly made contact with the Ferrari, but we do make contact with Pierre Gasly. We've been given an illegal overtake as well. How's that happened then? We've been pushed down to P11. It turned from an insane save not to hit the back of whoever was going so slow. I think it was Leclerc. But Gasly has made contact with us into turn 1 then. He pushed us through to cut the corner, basically, cut the curb. And he basically treated us like we weren't even there, as we kind of do the same to Albon, get the elbows out in frustration, basically, to just get back into our grid slot. But we've got floor damage now, or a bit of side pod damage potentially as well. And that's going to hurt us, not only in a straight line, but also just corner balance midway through. Some of these corners may feel a little bit wobbly for us now, as Sergio Perez still in P5 in the Sauber. Brilliant stuff for him. It's kind of as it was. Piastri, Norris, Russell, Bottas, the top 5 all the same. Verstappen then P6, Leclerc in P7, Gasly P8, Sainz P9, myself P10. It really is kind of very much almost the same top 10. Just the Ferraris, I think, have swapped around. But let's look at a replay then. So Gasly with the poor initial start, we fly through. Then look at where we are. We dodge the Ferrari, but then Gasly here, he's just turning in way too early. For where the corner was. I think obviously he had the 2 Ferraris next to him, but he's started turning in for turn 1 like we weren't even there. And just that subtle bit of contact, even before we got to turn 1 has given us some damage. So a little bit of unfortunate contact with our teammate may just now hurt us for the rest of this race, as Verstappen gets past his old teammate Sergio Perez to get up into P5. It was probably coming. The Sauber is miles away from where it should be, but Perez will obviously be trying his hardest to try and maintain position as we make a cheeky little and pretty sweet dive bomb on Carlos Sainz, catching him completely unawares on the outside there. I enjoyed that one, actually. That was actually quite good to say with the damage. The car doesn't feel too horrendous. There's yellow flags! Yellow flags! Who's that? Hulkenberg! Hulkenberg has retired, and it looks like he's retired whilst going into the pits. Potentially there for him. That's unfortunate. Nothing will come of it in terms of any safety car or red flag. So we continue on and pressing on, pressurizing Pierre Gasly. I don't know whether Gasly has damage himself, because I'm surprised we're looking this quick versus our own teammate in the same car, but we're the one carrying the floor damage, and we do a copycat move almost of the one on Carlos Sainz on the outside, finding some good space and rhythm through that corner up into P8. But yeah, this car doesn't feel totally awful, at least not on the back straights through Sector 2 and into Sector 3, but these last 2 corners not too great for us. And in the distance I can see Gasly. I think he's pulling out. Yes, he is. He's got DRS. We squeeze him, but the Frenchman is ahead into P8 once again. He parks it on the apex. He denies me the switch. I was going from left to right, completely denied there. He's got DRS open again, but is this the start maybe of some aggression from Gasly? Is he now also brake checks us into the next right-hander? My oh my, it's been pretty respectful so far. We had a good little battle in Brazil, but so far in this Australian Grand Prix, Gasly is being so aggressive with these moves, defensive or attacking, and we are struggling now. Bit of understeer through turn 1, and maybe that's where the pace deficit is starting to creep in with this damage we've got. Sainz dives it to the inside. We're trying our best to keep it level with him. We give him the room to work with, but ultimately wanting to squeeze him out, but we've now lost time to Gasly, who pulls away 1.5, so maybe I spoke too soon about that damage not hurting our pace really, as on lap 7 for the lead, Lando Norris versus his old teammate from the McLaren days in Season 1. Seems so long ago now, I've kind of very much got used to Lando in Red Bull colours. Lando leads the Australian Grand Prix. The Red Bull has overtaken the McLaren. They're not invincible. This just became a proper fight. I was a bit worried from the pace Piastri showed in Q3 that he was just going to walk away with this, but no, we've got a race on our hands. Piastri is going to have to come back at Lando Norris, who leads the way and is actually pulling away by half a second there as we cut back to our POV, and it's understeer city. Oh my god, through these corners, really not looking great. I wonder if the damage is getting worse for us as there's a red flag. And I don't even know what for, because I'm nowhere near the action here. So a very surprising, unexpected red flag, to be honest. Must be for something somewhere else on the circuit. Don't think anything to do with the leaders. But that's going to halt the race and maybe change a lot of our strategies, potentially going long on hards. And this is why the red flag's out there. Liam Lawson spins it in the last sector. And, well, oh my god. Oh my god. Well, he wasn't going to crash with Mick Schumacher, but the Williams pretty much body slammed Mick Schumacher into Liam Lawson. A lot of debris, and obviously that car is blocking the track, so that is why the red flag is out. But yeah, like I said, it's going to change up our strategies maybe as we go on to the hard tyre and looking to go maybe all the way to the end of this race. So we get underway once again, but now Lando Norris is the one in P1 as we get this race underway again. Perez completely stalling it off the line. Russell as well, as we make 1, 2, 3 overtakes maybe into turn 1, looking to maybe fight Valtteri Bottas, one of the McLarens. We might have a nosebleed at this rate, getting up to P6 here with the pace we've shown so far in this race. Unfortunately, Bottas is going to have a bit too much pace, and to be honest, there might not be much point fighting him, so I don't for P6, because I just know how good that McLaren is. Unfortunately, at the moment, McLaren is so good. It's very much kind of like Season 1 vibes, where I'm having to pick my battles, especially now with the damage in this race. I have to pick who I'm fighting. The Ferraris, they're worth fighting. The McLaren, Bottas was always going to get ahead of us at some point. Carlos Sainz, though, doing to me what I did to him as he dummies us, and he goes round the outside, but we're going to give him a much bigger fight than he ever did in Sector 3 to try and keep it side by side with the Spaniard. We're going the long way round, but oh, good defence from Sainz on the curb. Just drifts a little through that apex to get his rear end out. We just couldn't keep going on the outside. And now we've got our teammate for company in the background. We're trying to save battery for Sector 2 there. Not wanting to use too much into Turn 1, because I'm finding a lot of pace on that back straight, and that's where we can maybe re-overtake Carlos Sainz. But at the moment, we cut back to the race lead, and this is Piastri looking to retake the lead from Lando Norris. Surely not on the outside to the inside in Sector 1. What a move! I don't see AI making overtakes like that in that area of Albert Park often, but Piastri's done it. Brilliant stuff to get back into the lead. But it's good to see there's a proper fight on between the McLaren and Red Bull, and there's a proper fight on between myself and Carlos Sainz. We just can't get rid of each other in this race. We couldn't make it work to the inside for the high-speed chicane, but we are going to make it through and power past on this back straight to get up back into P6, as Gasly and Leclerc are also squabbling. It really is Ferrari versus our team all through this race. Leclerc getting the better of his friend into Sector 3, up into P8. Hopefully Gasly can come back at him, but the two Aston Martins aren't too far away, Albon and Alonso, and I think they've chosen a softer compound than most of us, so they might be a bit racy, you know. Hopefully not racy enough to start catching us, but there's a big gap ahead of us to Bottas, Russell, Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, who are all kind of one pack now. Bottas has caught up, so it's a train from P1 to P6, and then you've got this second half of the top 10 led by myself, and I think maybe P6 is the highest we're going to fight for, so we need to try and be as stern as we can at keeping this position. But Sainz is looking quite mighty, and he's really channeling that momentum he got from Sao Paulo, trying to drag this Ferrari higher and higher as Gasly's P8. What the hell has happened to Leclerc? Leclerc's P11. He's had a nightmare. He was up in P8 just a moment ago, but now all of a sudden he's outside the points. He must have an issue, surely, as Albon, like I said, on the softer compound, having a go at our teammate. That's a bit worrying, you know. I think in clean air, Albon and Alonso both could chase down myself and Sainz, and then we're in trouble in terms of the max points we can score. Because, yeah, Albon and Alonso have both chosen the medium tyre, whereas the rest of us are all on hard. So, Aston Martin quite confident in their tyre wear levels as we're on lap 19 now. 10 laps to go. That's quite some way for the Astons to go as we're now focused back on this race lead battle between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. The Red Bull following in P2. DRS available for him. Where is the Brit going to go? To the outside. The Australian is defensive. It's going to be the Red Bull going the long way round. I think he can do it, though, as he makes a bit of contact with Oscar to try and keep alongside him, and then goes fully around the outside. Fair play. That is a good overtake through there. This is turning into a great battle for the race win, and this is also bunching up everyone. Verstappen's not too far off behind Russell and Bottas as well, but they just can't make the difference to make a move. But Piastri can make the difference, maybe, in a similar copycat move to the one Lando made on him. Piastri's done his homework there, and he's pretty much pulled off the same move to get P1 back. As on lap 23, Bottas with a lock-up. He's gone wide. He's on the grass, and that's going to be a free position for me and Sainz. Sainz is a bit wayward. He almost crashed into the back of Bottas, and that's going to give us the moment to take the position on the Ferrari. We've been following him for pretty much most of that stint up till then since he overtook us, but we get the position and take our opportunity as Bottas now struggling for grip, and he's gone wide again. Oh, he's in the gravel. He's maybe parking up. Oh, it's a howler for the Flying Finn coming off a race win. He's fallen far here. This is unfortunate, especially with his own teammate in P1. This is the opposite of what he needs to still be there. You know, I know early on in the season, but if you really add it up, you can't be having races like this, especially when your car is so quick. You've got to make the most of it, because I hope that we all will catch McLaren in the R&D chart, and when we do, they'll be ruining these chances. Bottas will be ruining this race where he did make the most of it. So yeah, we're up into P5 now, defensive on Sainz to try and maintain a top 5 position, and the top 3 are Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, all close together. Russell's fallen away a little bit there, so it's really just the two Red Bulls chasing and trying to charge down Oscar Piastri. As on lap 26 then, we've flown through this race. It's been a long old stint on these hard tyres and a long old time trying to defend the cars behind us. This time it's Alexander Albon who's made the move. He's overtaken Sainz. He's overtaken us now on those mediums. And honestly, I'm quite impressed Aston Martin still have this much pace on these mediums. They're the only team that went mediums, and you can kind of see why. They're turned into tyre whisperers. They didn't show this kind of tyre wear before in previous seasons, but maybe that's one big upgrade they've done into this one. But Albon is still going to be there for the pickings, and it's going to be a pretty naughty little dive bomb on the outside there. We got so close to making contact with Albon and also dipped a tyre onto the grass to really do it. We lock up into the last corner though, because you can see all the marbles and all the dust on my tyre really slowing me up, and also with the tyre wear, the underfloor problem I've got is getting worse and worse. With tyre wear, it's really making that an issue. So we're having to really work hard to stay ahead as we see Norris diving down the inside of Piastri on lap 27. Lando going for the lead in the last couple of laps. This could be crucial. This could be it for the race win potentially, with the tyre wear now kicking in for everyone, and we're all winding down for the end of the race. It's a 1-3 for Red Bull now. Lando leads the way on lap 20 towards lap 28. The last 2 laps of the Grand Prix, and now Verstappen's got a run on Piastri. Does Piastri have a problem maybe? Verstappen with DRS on the inside. Ooh, just can't make it. Got squeezed out by Oscar. That's some stern defense, but I think Piastri's got a problem. I think he's got a mechanical issue. He looks very slow, to be honest, as do we through the final corner onto lap 20. We're pretty much tiptoeing around those last 2 corners, honestly. The car feels so bad through those last 2 bends. bends as Albon overtakes us in what is turning into one of the slowest battles ever, as we're all facing a bit of tyre wear, a bit of lack of pace. But where we don't lack pace is this back straight where we're going to fly past with DRS. We're going to save battery, because I know Albon is so strong through sector 3, and especially onto the next lap I'm going to need the battery on the main straight. So on purpose I'm not going to be deploying any ERS. We're just trying to stay ahead of him with the DRS here, but he's on the inside. He's going to outbrake us. He's got better grip at this stage. He's gone over the curb, vaulted over it. That slowed him up a little bit and might give us half a chance to get our nose in. Yes, we get him back. A little bit of marbling on the tyres. It's going to slow us up. Oh, Albon's coming with a late dive. Where has he come from? I thought I had the corner there, but no, he came in with a late lunge as we see Verstappen get into P2. It's a 1-2 for Red Bull, and McLaren's race is unraveling. I think Piastri, at this stage we have to conclude he's got a mechanical issue. He must do, as Russell overtakes him. It's ropes. It's done. McLaren, what a howler of a race, but this is great stuff for the rest of us. This proves they are not indestructible. They dominated the first 2 races, 2 wins in a row, miles ahead in the constructors, but this is a race that gives everyone on the grid hope that the title fight is fully on still with the development race, and that McLaren can slip up mechanically. Piastri with an issue clearly, and Bottas obviously hasn't even recovered since those 2 mistakes. He's down in P14. He's had even worse time. He's lost more positions having gone off then from where he left him. But yeah, Piastri will be so frustrated. Pole position in his home race, but it's only going to be P4. He can't even get on the podium in his home race, and it's going to be Lando Norris, our title rival from last season, has put down a marker here, down under. He wins the Australian Grand Prix, and Red Bull lay down a marker with a 1-2. And for us, considering everything, the floor damage, the real lack of pace in Sector 3, to come home P5 is outstanding for us. We will take that.
It was a magnificent race and a drive right out of the top draw to take the win for Red Bull today. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I feel consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sports that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
It's a podium I really didn't see coming. I thought, you'd say at least one McLaren would have been there on the podium today, but no. Wow, Bottas with errors. Piastri's car, I think, definitely had a mechanical issue, the way he lost those 2 positions on the last lap to get off the podium, and that's big for Red Bull. That's going to be a big booster in terms of morale, momentum for these 2 AI drivers, and obviously momentum for the team in terms of, pushing on with more upgrades, because now they know they can maybe take the fight to McLaren properly. So Red Bull step up as the first team to dethrone McLaren this season off the top step. Russell with a pretty quiet but decent 3rd place. For us, it's a pretty, well, not quiet, very hard-fought P5 there, and very good, really, considering the damage. But even without the damage, I think we just need way more pace in this car, and hopefully that's on the way with the 2 ultimate upgrades. But a very hard-fought race here, down under, as we now look towards the next one, the new Singapore GP layout. So, guys, if you have enjoyed this one, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.